In the late 1990s, video games were having kind of a moment with 3D platformers. The genre existed in a primitive form for a couple of years, but in September of 1996, Crash Bandicoot came out for the PS1, quickly followed by Super Mario 64. Just a couple months after that, I would hit the scene as well. Now, Crash Bandicoot is a great game in its own right, and it sold really well. But Super Mario 64 helped redefine what 3D platformers were even capable of. And with that, the floodgates opened up and we got Spyro Year of the Dragon. We got 2 more Crash Bandicoot games. We got Donkey Kong 64. We got Gex, I guess. In 1998, Banjo-Kazooie would come out on the Nintendo 64, and it's chock full of fantastic music, colorful characters and worlds, and sharp writing filled with loads of British humor. It was a runaway success, and a couple years we would get a, for better or worse, way more ambitious sequel in the form of Banjo-Tooie. Now, the ending of Banjo-Tooie teased a supposed third entry in the Banjo-Kazooie series, a Banjo 3E, or 3E, Banjo 3. They joked about making a Banjo 3 at the end of Banjo-Tooie. Okay, still people yearned for another entry in the Banjo-Kazooie franchise. But all hope seemed lost when in 2001, Microsoft broke onto the console scene by releasing the Xbox. And in 2002, they saw an opportunity to pad out their studio lineup, and they bought Rare along with all of their IPs, including Banjo-Kazooie. And in hindsight, the foreshadowing should have been obvious. Rare pumped out another couple games under the Xbox banner, and all hope seemed lost for seeing our favorite bear and bird back on the screen again. But at E3 2006, we saw this trailer. Okay. Banjo is back. I like that. That's good. Let's see what they're cooking up over at Rare. Rare? What have you done? What have you done to my boy? So, yeah, in 2008, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts would come out for the Xbox 360 to mixed reception? Now, despite its overall negative fan reception, I've always personally been of the mindset that Nuts and Bolts is actually a pretty solid game. Lately, I've been getting the itch to play it again for the first time in 15 years, so I was able to track down a copy of it, and I collected all 131 jiggies, effectively 100%ing the game, just to make sure that I can definitively stand by my opinion that Nuts and Bolts deserves better. Let me tell you why. Nuts and Bolts picks up several years after the events of Banjo-Tooie. Banjo and Kazooie have long since defeated the evil witch, Grunty, and have since fallen into a lifestyle of gorging themselves on pizza and video games and put on quite a good bit of weight in the process. But one fateful day, Grunty comes bouncing back and decides to try and take Banjo and Kazooie head on. But before they can really get into it, they're interrupted by the Lord of Games, or Log for short. He's the creator of all video games, apparently, including Banjo-Kazooie somehow? I don't know, it's weird. But anyway, he pits them in a competition for ownership of Spiral Mountain to put this conflict to rest once and for all. But after deriding platforming games, collectathons, and people who enjoy them, he decides to pivot more towards a vehicle-based competition because gamers just want to shoot things. Or whatever, I don't know. His words, not mine. You're whisked away to Showdown Town and the game begins for real. This is our hub that connects all the levels of the game, and honestly, it's a really great hub area. Characters from the old games show up here with new tasks this time around. Mumbo Jumbo, for example, has ditched magic to open a mechanic shop where you can build and test drive new vehicles, which is a core part of the game. Humbo Wumba is also back, and she sells vehicle parts and pre-made vehicles for you to use in the game's levels. Boggy is also back in this game, and this time around he runs a gym where you can upgrade Banjo's abilities like his health or his walk speed. Neither of which really matter because you're going to be spending most of your time in this game in a vehicle anyway. But we've also got new characters like Trophy Thomas, a overly competitive leopard with a huge ego to match. Oh, and Pikelet, how could I forget about Pikelet? He runs a severely underbaked police system that they added to this game for some reason, but it's okay, I think the developers forgot about him too. To keep you from sequence breaking too much, there's one vehicle that you're allowed to drive in Showdown Town that you continually add parts to throughout the game. These parts that you find will allow you to access more areas of the map as well as secrets like these part crates. You can bring these back to Mumbo and he can crack them open to unlock more vehicle parts for you to use in the game worlds. And honestly, it's really fun and satisfying to be able to find these crates out in the world, bring them back to Mumbo, and get more parts that I can use to build faster or more specialized vehicles. These vehicles that you build get used in the game's 5 levels. Nutty Acres has a lot of fun terrain to drive around in, plenty of airspace, and large bodies of water for boats and such. Also, in this level, Mumbo Jumbo from earlier takes on a role of a coconut farmer, so there's huge signs everywhere that say Mumbo's Nuts on them. They knew exactly what they were doing. Banjo Land also has a lot of fun airspace and terrain and water to drive around in, but an added bonus is that it has all sorts of fun nods to the older Banjo-Kazooie games too. There's the Freezeezy Peak Snowman, there's the Golden Goliath, George, and a big toilet. Terrarium of Terror is set in a giant terrarium floating through space. And it's not bad, it just has some missed potential. The design is a little bit cramped and the terrain doesn't really lend itself to any particular type of vehicle. But the designs and the music are really great, and it does have some of the best challenges in the game. I'm trying really hard to find nice things to say about these next 2 levels. All 3 Banjo games seem to insist on having one terrible level that's just a pain in the rear to navigate. And in Nuts and Bolts, it's Logbox 720. It's set in a giant legally distinct Xbox 360 and it's filled with winding platforms that are easy to fall off of, floating platforms for you to hit your head on when you're in a helicopter, this huge liquid cooling system that snakes through the whole thing and just gets in your way. It is not fun to navigate at all, and it's too visually busy to be able to read well, which is a problem when you need to be able to think on your feet during a race or a challenge. But one thing that I will give it credit for, and this is a very small thing, it does not make the level better, okay? It does not. But if you hit the console's graphics card, it garbles the video feed, and I love some interface screw, so that's a lot of fun. The Jigosium is just boring. There's not really a whole lot going on visually or gameplay wise. There's not really any interesting terrain to drive on. I even really forgot it was called the Jigosium until I opened the level. Now look, I know that you can't expect every game to be filled with wall-to-wall bangers, but it does kind of suck that out of the game's 5 levels, only 2 of them are really any great, with Terrarium of Terror getting a participation ribbon, I suppose. But even then, those 2 great levels don't stand up to other great levels of the Banjo franchise like Freezeezy Peak, Click Clock Wood, or Witchy World, and that kinda sucks. Each of these levels are split up into 6 acts, with each one having its own unique challenges that you have to overcome with the help of your vehicles that you build. And these challenges are really the central gameplay of Nuts and Bolts. You might have to do a race, or fend off waves of enemies, or transport an object from point A to point B. Some of these challenges require you to use a pre-built vehicle, but lots of them will allow you to build your own, which introduces a lot of freedom into how you approach your objective. For example, there's a challenge in Nutty Acres where you have to suck up Mumbo's nuts, which is not what it sounds like. But the game expects you to create some vehicle that can get the coconuts from one part of the map and then bring them over to this vacuum to shoop them up into it for points. But another totally valid strat is to just snap the whole dang vacuum off, airlift it to the coconuts instead, and hoover them all up for a lot of points. Or there's this challenge where Klungo wants you to fry his egg in the volcano, which is also not what it sounds like. But you can also totally just strap a flamethrower to the front of a box of ammo and you're golden. The vehicles in this game are really fun to make too. They snap together like Lego pieces and different parts have different functions. For example, you need an engine, which requires fuel. If you want weapons, then you need ammo. And that's not to mention your various implements like wheels, propellers, and floaters. And getting better and better parts throughout the game is a really satisfying progression. It means you can go from building a little engine that could at the start of the game to reaching the end and being able to build a blisteringly fast abomination with 9 jet engines strapped to it. Vehicle handling generally feels pretty good too, aside from maybe some weird physics every now and again being a nuisance, but other than that, it's really a lot of fun to fly, drive, or skid around on a boat. These vehicles and challenges that lie at the center of Nuts and Bolts are why I think this game deserves better. People like to talk about this game like Greg Mills personally broke into their house and John Wicked their dog. And sure, the game does have some baffling creative and game design decisions that poke some pretty big holes into it. But honestly, I think that despite that, it still evens out to a pretty decent game that is worth your time for a good price at least. Now I know that I'm far from the first person to say this, but I really do believe that Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts would have been received a lot better if it either A, wasn't a Banjo-Kazooie game to begin with, or B, if it really absolutely had to be a Banjo game for brand recognition or whatever, they could have put out a proper platforming Banjo 3 to go along with it. But according to series creator Greg Mills, that was never really in the cards to begin with anyway. So that leads to an addendum to my opinion, because not only do I genuinely believe that Nuts and Bolts does deserve a slightly better reputation, but I also think the core mechanic of building vehicles to overcome challenges is a really cool idea that deserves better. I mean, there's almost 20 years of technological improvement that we could build on. Not to mention, there's been a swath of games since 2008 that have built on the idea of building a vehicle to overcome a challenge. Kerbal Space Program takes the vehicle building idea to its logical and surprisingly pretty realistic conclusion, having you build rockets to send Kerbals into space. And I know I'm not the first one to make this comparison, but Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom introduced an Ultra Hand ability. This one lets you put together vehicles and contraptions to solve puzzles, navigate the game's open world, and yes, send Korok into space. Don't worry, he'll be fine. He'll come back down eventually. If you gave the vehicle building mechanics of Nuts and Bolts a modern coat of paint and put them in the center of a more competently and confidently developed game, you would have a banger on your hands. Lego Island 3, anyone? But honestly, it's not just Nuts and Bolts or its gameplay ideas that deserve better. It's been nearly 20 years since this game has come out, and since then there have been only rumors of Banjo-Kazooie being whispered behind Rare's closed doors. Even if a new Banjo game were to happen, a lot of the talent that made these games originally have since moved on to other studios to make their own games. So as a result, it's kind of bittersweet to watch as Spyro and Crash get lovingly made remakes, Super Mario continues to bring the thunder every single time, even Donkey Kong got a brand new 3D platformer for the first time in 26 years. And I haven't played it yet, but from what I've heard, it's apparently a Game of the Year contender. And heck, they even brought Gex back, and apparently we're getting a new Bubsy game in the year of our Lord 2025? Like, what are we even doing? So really, it's the Banjo-Kazooie series as a whole that deserves better. It's a classic and beloved series that's been unfortunately left in the dust while its peers get remakes and new entries in their series. And it is really unfortunate that the series seems to have ended on such a divisive note. Sure, there are plenty of other 3D platformers out there that are being made right now, and I can continue to play Banjo-Kazooie every year as I have done for years already. And I am very glad as a fan of the series that after 18 years, I was finally able to check the Baron Bird off of my Super Smash Bros. Most Wanted list. But as much as I know deep down that it probably isn't going to ever happen, I would really love to see Banjo truly come back. Which is really the whole reason that I'm making this video in the first place, because last time I said on camera, I sure would wish this dormant franchise I enjoy would come back. Well, thank you for listening to me ramble about a 6 out of 10 video game from 17 years ago. If you liked this video, please give it a like. That helps me know what you want to see more of as a viewer. And while you're at it, leave your favorite Banjo level down in the comments. And if you really enjoyed your time here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me out a lot. My name is Matthew.wav. Thank you for watching my video. I'm gonna go play a good Banjo game now.